Good evening. This is the May 21st, 2018 meeting of the Legislative Affairs Subcommittee. Madam Clerk, want to call the roll?
Roll call of the attendance of the members of the Legislative Affairs Subcommittee. Councilor McKenna?
Here.
Here. Councilor Morbido?
Here.
Here. Councilor Patch is absent. Councilor Powers?
Here.
Here. And Chairman Zambudo?
Here.
Here. Quorum is present.
Thank you.
First item on the agenda is Council Order 18-022. This is a motion presented by Councilor Novoselsky that the city engineer and a member of the Election Commission appear to discuss the reassignment of property addresses.
Commissioner and Mr. Engineer, welcome.
Rep, may I take a minute to not only clarify some of the issues that happened at the last meeting, but to also just kind of bring this into perspective? Okay, so there are
Positively.
thank you, sir. There are a total of 27,719 registered voters in the city of Revere. So far in 2018, 711 voters were registered. In 2017, it was 2,069. In 2016, we registered 4,335 voters. The point I'm trying to make is, of that, we had 500 changes that we had to make to invalid addresses. Of the 500 changes, 3 people were unhappy. One of them we resolved, 2 are pending. We're more than happy to work with the 2 pending invalid addresses. And we want to have a good outcome. Our intent is not to upset people. I understand the level of frustration here, and that is not our intent. Our intent is to have a valid database and a valid voting list so that on election day we have the, and for the census, the street list book, for all that, we have the best database possible. That is all our intent. That's the only intent we have. So with that, I mean, there were other points that, and I appreciate you indulging me. Some of the points where several people were denied the right to vote on, that wasn't a true statement. Anyone that has a problem or that comes to my office with a problem, we're more than happy to resolve that. The process is the direct result of a newly enacted Mass General law. That is not true. Over the last 2 years, we have expanded our criteria by checking every address submitted on any type of request received. That includes change of party, change of name, change of address. So we've taken a closer look at what comes through the doors, if you will. And there are 2 Mass General laws that allow us to do that. It basically, I can quote the law, but it basically reads, it applies to voter registrations for all federal, state, and municipal elections. It's to increase the number of eligible citizens who register to vote, to protect the integrity of the electoral process, and to ensure that accurate and current voter registration lists are maintained. That's only one of the Mass General laws. The city should change the address to match the residence. We always travel the path of least resistance. The practice of not only the city engineer, but myself, is to change the address in the owner's favor. In extreme circumstances, the engineer may default to the assessor's database, and that's only because it will throw off the numbers on the rest of the street. And our goal, and I speak for Nick as well as myself, is to just maintain an accurate address list. 7,900 people are going through this process. So far, we've documented just about 500. I don't know how many more people are going to be affected, but we're hoping that it will have the same result here. Out of 500, maybe 3 won't be happy.
I'm saying 3. There's 4 at this address.
Okay, excuse me. You don't have to get, Lorna, that is not going to resolve anything. I really want to come to an amicable decision with you.
And stop lying.
I'm not lying, and please don't say that I'm lying.
Excuse me. Please don't interrupt. You'll have your chance to speak. We don't need to get into this back and forth stuff here. I'm not going to tolerate it. Thank you.
Okay, I'm just about done. It says that census forms were rejected. All of the census forms that we received were processed. This is the fault of Patriot Properties. Patriot Properties really wasn't a factor in this. It's just he and I trying to do the best job for the city. Every registrant was sent a letter explaining the process, and the letter was done in Spanish and English. It explained to them what was going on. We did provide change of address cards. I know your tenant didn't get it, but I figured because of the meeting, and I didn't want to add anything until we had the meeting. But all of the other voters and my staff can attest to this. They were sent change of address cards. Some of them filled them out, some of them did not. We don't press the issue with them. We tell them what the story is, and we leave it up to them to decide how they want to handle it. And that's just about it. But I want it known that we really want to work with everyone. We do not want to prohibit voters from voting on Election Day. That is not our intent. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Commissioner. And I understand that you're trying to do what's right for the city, and nobody is saying that you're doing something that you shouldn't have been doing. My only argument in the beginning was that there should have been a little more education so people would know about it, mainly us, so we could disseminate that information, and that's what went wrong here.
Okay,
Nobody's
and-
saying
yep.
that you're trying to do something to disrupt people intentionally. Nobody thinks that. We know that you're doing what you feel is best for the city and what's best as doing your job. And so I want that clear, that we don't have you up here to say you're not doing the job, and we're trying to get this as close to straightened out as we can. You're never going to please everybody. We see that, we know that, but the bottom line was that some of us were blindsided by this, and that was the only part of this that I was a little upset about. But I'm way over that, and I want it understood that I know you do your job, and I know that Nick does his job. I know what's what here. So everybody will have a chance to speak, including everybody in the audience, and
Thank you, sir.
we'll go forward.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Engineer.
So I just wanted to add a little bit. Obviously, the impact on the voting and elections is significant in terms of people being able to vote and that sort of thing. But the discrepancies in the addresses throughout the city in general, it's sort of a broader problem. There are discrepancies in the database related to mailing addresses of properties not matching legal addresses, individual properties using more than one address, and then also addresses being not properly, properties being not properly addressed. So what I try to do, in general, is to reconcile a lot of those discrepancies with the mailing addresses not matching up legal addresses, and standards not being upheld in terms of proper addressing of properties. And the reason for that is because of the impact it has not only on elections but throughout different parts of the city. So there is obviously a component that's related to public safety, response to fire and police. There's also an aspect of it related to the post office, people getting mail and not getting mail. And then there's also some impact on when people are trying to transfer properties or refinance. We run into issues there. And then utility accounts with National Grid and Verizon, and even some with the DMV. When you have properties that aren't properly addressed, you could run into problems with any number of these entities. And then also just internally, when, from my experience trying to contact property owners, like let's say for the sump pump program, when I don't have an address or it's not the correct address, or there's some type of discrepancy, and then the letter gets sent back and we don't have the ability to be in contact with people properly. And then there's some more and more convenience-related issues, like getting packages delivered and ordering a pizza and things like that. And so we try to, like Diane said, we try to correct them in a way that it's least impactful. Unfortunately, sometimes least impactful for one person is, impactful for another, or maybe it impacts one person, but it avoids impacting 5 other people. So there's sort of like a balance and a give and take there that you're going to end up in certain situations where somebody, is going to be inconvenienced, and in some cases significantly. So I just wanted to, kind of give a broad overview of some of the things that we run into and some of the reasons why we're trying to, standardize and correct some of the discrepancies that we encounter. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Okay, we'll call on the committee members at this point. Council McKenna? No? Council Moravito?
I do. When looking at the whole scenario, at some of the issues that you mentioned were concerns of mine. People go to sell their house, the information on the deed, the addresses are completely, they're different from, so not only is it an extra burden, selling a house is a burden itself, and they have to jump through loops to get to the next point in order to successfully transfer the deed. I look at it as an issue when it comes to if it's affecting a large amount of people. Could the city be liable? This is a Paul Capizzi question, but we could be liable in a class action suit down the road if we're putting everyone through these hardships as well. So is that something you guys looked into?
There isn't a hardship, and they don't have to jump through a hoop. All they have to do is come to City Hall and talk to us, and we'll be happy to come to a resolution for them. We want to, no, you would say
Diana,
jump.
it is jumping through loops.
If they come
Hear
to
me
the-
out.
Okay.
If you're in the scenario,
Yep.
take yourself out of your position
Right.
and put yourself in a homeowner's position who's
Okay.
trying to sell their home.
Yes?
It's a very gut-wrenching, nerve-wracking experience. It's a
Okay.
very emotional roller coaster for them,
Okay.
okay? And they have to, and then here they are going along the process, and then there's a hold because someone can't get financing because the address is incorrect. Someone can't buy the house, or the address on the deed is incorrect. So I think it's very crucial as a city we proceed with caution. Keep in mind, I think you're doing the best that you can with the daunting task and this responsibility.
Right.
It's very challenging, and this isn't to discredit you at all, or either of you. I think you're doing the best of your ability, but my concern is down the road can the city be held liable at some point? And that's where I get nervous, in the sense that we're basically the board of directors for the city looking at the financial pictures. I want to hope there can be no legal repercussion.
So, Councilor, the situation that you described with regards to somebody trying to sell their house or refinance, so those are the types of situations that by correcting the address ahead of time, we're trying to avoid. There has been a couple of different times where somebody has come to my office and they're, very upset. They're saying, hey, I'm trying to refinance my home or sell it, and we're closing tomorrow, but the bank won't recognize that, the deed because it doesn't have the right number on it. And so at those times, I've been able to draft a letter that, just temporarily helps them by saying, hey, these 2 addresses are actually associated with the same property, and then we've been able to correct it after that. Now, if we're able to catch that and correct it ahead of time, then that whole headache with the person trying to sell their home or refinance it is avoided. And so that's one of the reasons that, we want to try to correct it, to try to avoid some of those types of problems.
So how far along are you in the process, would you say?
So I think there's a misconception that this was like a specifically planned, project, whereas really, from my point of view, what I'm doing is, as these come across my desk, we try to correct them as they come. I don't have the resources to go into Patriot and take a look at every property and try to see if it's accurate or needs to be corrected or anything like that. So as they come across, that's when I'm able to address them.
So basically, when problems arise, that's when the situation is being corrected.
Right, from different places. So
Yeah.
sometimes it's a situation like that. Sometimes it's a situation that's otherwise, if somebody is, trying to deal with National Grid and they're trying to get service, or from Comcast, and their address is not being recognized. If we correct it then if they, say they try to sell the house 10 years from now, then they don't have a problem then. But we address it as they have issues, in the present.
With that said, as you mentioned earlier, you have limited resources. For you
right.
to have to, how many people in your department? Two, okay? Now, on top of this, you have the burden of writing letters, correcting the situation. You're limited with resources. I think going forward, maybe we want to look at in the budget, maybe we should make a recommendation to add someone to that department to help them, because this is a project that's going to consume a lot of resources. And I'm sorry, your focus shouldn't be on here. Your focus should be out with the design of our city and the engineering of our city, not the addresses. So I think going forward, I think we should look into that, Mr. Chairman.
So I think, that help
Certainly
would
would
be great.
support you on that.
I would appreciate that. It is, part of the engineering department's responsibility to address addresses. So it's something that, we have to deal with, regardless. But certainly, having some help with that would be, make things maybe a little bit smoother and, more beneficial for us anyhow.
It is one of the many responsibilities, but it's a tedious one. And to have two people and have, how many houses are there in Revere?
There's close to 12,000 buildings.
12,000 buildings, and how many of them are anticipated to change from a 2-number facility to a 1-number address?
I think that generally there's thousands, and it's hard to say how many, but there's thousands that have some type of address issue, not necessarily that specific one, but one that needs to be addressed in some way. I would say thousands, in the thousands.
Yeah, I just think
3 or 4 maybe.
it's very important to
It's hard
get a
to
number on,
Right.
get some kind of estimated, educated guess, some kind of hypothesis on it, so.
We can probably do that later, and when
Can I
you're
just-
when you're proposing this new position, we can get the rest of the facts to go along with it to justify it.
Okay,
How's that
Mr.
sound?
Chairman.
Counselor, can I just say something in addition to what you were saying in your comment?
Is that
May
a
I?
question? Absolutely.
No, may I?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
We actually made the conscious decision to check every registration and every piece of paper that came through our office. So it's a very time-consuming process, and we tried to do a lot of the research before it hits the engineer's desk, and we ask for his, he needs to make not only the ultimate decision, but he also needs to guide us if we can't figure it out. We also asked for a part-time position in our budget, and I don't know if the council would be willing to support that as well, because it is a time-consuming process that we've taken on, and we've found a lot of discrepancies, so I don't know if that would be something that the council would be willing to support.
I would ask you, have you run that by the mayor at this point?
I have my budget meeting on Thursday.
Oh, good,
yes.
good, okay, great.
Mr. Chairman,
Counselor Powers?
just one more
Oh,
thing.
go ahead.
One thing to look at as well, I think we need to make sure that all the systems are in sync, the assessor's computer system, engineer,
Absolutely.
and the billing department as well.
We'll deal with the details later. Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Powers?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have 2 concerns. And one of them is when people come in here, come into City Hall with a problem that's relative to being denied to vote at a precinct, are we keeping records of all of this? Because I certainly wouldn't want to see the city get involved in a civil rights suit down the road because we denied someone to vote.
We're not denying anyone the right to vote. I don't know why what we did was...
I didn't say you were, I'm just
what-
throwing this out there.
Okay, so what we did was, initially, we did reject some of the registrations, but then what we did was, we pulled all of the registrations and we registered the voters at the new address. We sent them a letter and we told them that, and then we sent change of address cards to every other registered voter in the household to complete and return.
Are we keeping a record of those individuals?
We had a record, yes.
You say had.
We have, yes, we do have a record of those people.
Okay,
But everyone has since been registered to vote.
okay. Nick, I question, are you keeping, yours would be a different situation where a person was trying to finance a house or finance a piece of property.
Yep.
Are you
So-
keeping a record of people that find themselves in this situation, a log, so to speak?
Yep, so every time that an address needs some type of correction or assignment or anything like that, a letter, I have to draft a letter to make that happen officially. So I have every one of those that I've done, and then I also have a list of the ones that, of all the addresses that I've had touched for one reason or another.
Okay, that would be
So
my
there is a
main,
record.
that'd be my main concern, and to both of you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Guanasso.
Mr. Chairman, just one point of information here. We have just 2 residents that appeared before the subcommittee, that want to appear before the subcommittee, and taking the time out to come and appear here. And I think because of shortness of time, I think we should give them the latitude of conversation with the 2 parties, namely Nick Rystrom from Engineering and Diane Kellogg from the Election Department.
I'm going to give them as much time as they want, Counselor.
Well, bearing in mind, another meeting
I know.
starts at quarter
I know
over.
that.
So
I
I'm
know
watching that too.
We'll be cutting into your meeting. No, I think we can do both. Okay, so now the residents can come up and speak and name and address for the record. Maybe just before I get you going here, I want to keep one thing in mind. There was one question I had unrelated to this for the election commissioner, and that is, how do we prove citizenship when somebody comes to register to vote?
The form, the top of the form, that's one of the first questions, are you a citizen? And they sign that form under the pains and penalties of perjury.
That's it. No proof,
Unless-
no other proof.
They don't have to show their naturalization papers unless it's after the last day to register to vote, the 20-day holding period. Then if they come to register to vote after that, after the 20-day cutoff, then they have to show their naturalization papers. And they have until 4 p.m. the day before the election to do that.
Well, that's a cause for me to go after at the state level and maybe the federal level, because proof of saying that you sign under the pains and penalties of perjury, if you broke into the country, it's pretty easy to sign under the pains and penalties. That's not for you to deal with.
No.
I just wanted the procedure. You gave it to me. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, ma'am, I'm sorry to interrupt your,
That's not a problem.
go right ahead.
Lorna King, 81 Malden Street. One of the things Diane mentioned was that she used Google Maps. Well, if you Google 83 Malden Street, a picture of the house comes up. But if you continue to Google and you Google 81 Malden Street, a different view of the same house comes up. So Google does recognize that the house has 2 numbers. There's 2 separate entrances. It's a duplex house. For those who don't know what that means, it means 2 separate entrances. There are 4 apartments in the house. We had to have the fire department inspect when we were my mother was renting out. And we were told you had to have both entrances clearly marked, both numbers. Up until the time that the information was put into the assessors database, there was 81, 83 Malden Street. And then when it went into the computer, it says 83. Now, I'm going to assume, and hope that doesn't follow the suit of what that means, that every duplex house, I understand there's illegal apartments, there's houses with wrong numbers, there's all kinds of things. But this came about because my daughter got married, and she lives on the 1st floor with her husband, and we live on the 2nd floor. And because she went and changed her license, all of a sudden, we have to lie to vote. We have to say we live at 83. I want to know why the house cannot contain the two numbers. It's a duplex. It does not have the problems that they were talking about. We're not getting other people's bills. Other people aren't getting our bills. There isn't a back door that has a different number from the front door. These are two front doors with two separate entrances. I don't know what you're going to do with the projects if this is an issue. And Ira, as a landlord, wouldn't you think that if this crossed someone's desk, the first thing that would happen would be a letter would go out to the owner of the house in the city of Revere who pays taxes? Instead, my daughter gets a change of address card. Her husband isn't a registered voter, so he doesn't get one. We live upstairs. We don't get one until the third time I came to City Hall. And then all of a sudden, change of address cards and the letter came to me and my husband. So this is what I was talking about. There's 4 people being affected. When I was told that this could be corrected to my benefit, I was told that because 83 side at the moment is unoccupied, both up and down, that instead of having the house listed as 83, we could list it as 81, so the 4 people who actually do live there vote from there and have everything in their life say that number, it would still say that number. But I'm still being told the house has to have one number.
May I ask a question?
Counsel McKenna?
Thank you. Lorna, do you pay taxes for two-family house?
My mother and father pay taxes for a 4-family house.
A four-family house? Well, right now
Yes.
they're telling
And
you
my
it's a
mom
one-family
passed a year
house.
ago. Well, that doesn't make any sense. It's not a
Well, then you should
one-family
be,
house.
you should be paying taxes for a one-family house, not a four-family house.
Well,
If
right
they're
now it's
if
under
they're
the name
saying
of the
that
estate
you
of.
only have one number.
That's not helpful,
All I
Counsel.
know is if there was an election tomorrow and I walked up to...
That's not helpful.
If I walked up to the check-in desk at the election, if there was an election tomorrow, and I said 81 Malden Street, Lorna King, am I going to be allowed to vote?
Yes, because we didn't affect you, you're still listed here at 81.
Okay, but if you have your way and you make this change, okay.
If I can
this
stop you for-
change- If this change happens, for the wrong reasons, but if it happens, I'm going to have to say I live at 83 Malden Street. It will,
Can I stop you for a minute? This seems to me like one of the ones that you said might be an exception. Is this possible that this is an exception?
Can it have
A
two numbers?
duplex could be 2 addresses? Why wouldn't a duplex be two addresses? Or why wouldn't it be legal?
So you have one building, right? It's owned by one owner, there's multiple units. The post office doesn't recognize an 81-83. In my conversations with the Carrier Annex down on Wall Street, that's what they had said to me. They don't recognize it like that. In any of our records, the building department, some of the e-permitting, even the assessor, there's only a place for one address there.
Let me stop you for a minute. So say I buy a piece of property in West Revere, and I put some townhouses there. Townhouses can have a parting wall and have two separate, they don't do that? Who doesn't do that?
They'd be units.
Huh?
So, for example, there was some townhouses that were built on Marble Street. There, it's whatever number Marble Street, units 1, 2, 3, 4.
So in other words, it would have one address, Unit 1, Unit 2?
Or AB.
They'd be different units.
Right.
So there wouldn't be letters. The post office also does not recognize alphanumeric. Somehow mail gets delivered, but they're,
I don't know how we got on all these years. I really don't.
I don't know, but the way I understand it from them, they don't recognize letters. They don't recognize
Okay.
dashed numbers.
So you're saying, she's saying we can work this out, you're saying we can't.
No, it can be 81. That's fine.
It can't be 81 and 83.
It can't be 81-83. It's not, they don't recognize it.
Mr.
It can be one or the other. I mean, that's
Mr.
fine.
Chairman,
Okay, Counsel Novoselsky.
thank you. Since this was my original complaint, I have a lot to say. Understanding, well, that's an issue too, where it was my motion, I'm last to speak. But,
Well, you usually, the maker of the motion usually has a point. But first of all, through you to Council McKenna, it wouldn't be a one-family house. The houses like Lorna's is rated as a 4 to 8 unit complex. So there's 4 units in it, and there's different categories for the different units in different zones. So hers and mine are both duplex. Exactly what you were saying when you took my speech away. Everything you said was exactly correct. But, you know, to clarify, it's a multi-unit facility is 4 to 8 units. Then there's from 9 units and above is like an RC zone, and we're in an RB zone. But because our properties many years ago were broken up and divided, subdivided by one family in multiple ways. And back then, it was, like in my house, 53 Dohon Street. But somewhere, and when my deed was made, there was no number assigned to it in the Registrar of Deeds, back in the 1800s. You know, and I have the original deed, and there was no number. It just said from the point of Nahanta Ave down 50 feet down the street and 20, 30 feet back, and gave just the dimensions of the property. There was no number. Somewhere along the line, a number was given to it. But somewhere down the line, there were 2 numbers given to it because the house was built with 2 numbers, and it's embedded into my foundation. One side is 51 and one side is 53. Now, as far as the post office is concerned, people don't mail it to 51-53. If I live at 53, it comes to 53. My next door neighbor lives at 51, or used to. Her mail and their mail comes to 51. The post office recognizes it. It's been coming that way for 55 years, if not 75 years. So, you know, the post office does recognize one number, not the 2, and my mail still comes that way. Now, I question the requests, the card, the address change card. That card says, I request my address to be changed. These people are not requesting it, they're being made to change their address. Now, in my case, I had a building, I had worked on an apartment. It was at 51, apartment 2. Building department came down, gave me a permit for 51 Dohon Street, apartment 2. The Board of Health came down, gave me a permit and a CO for apartment 2 at 51 Dohon Street. You know, it's obvious that something's not clicking here. Now, you said for 2, you know, we've been working on this for 2 years. Why didn't we know about it?
No, I
We had the,
remember.
wait a minute, Counsel, Madam, I let you speak and didn't interrupt you. Okay, so soak it up and ask afterwards if the chairman wants. For 2 years, this has been worked on. Now, it may not have been a major project, but it turned into a major project. And it turned into a black hole as far as I'm concerned, because people falling into it. Now, we get census forms. For the last 40 years, 51 Dohon Street, Unit 1 and Unit 2. This one came in December 30th. 51 Dohon Street. And then all of a sudden, my new neighbor comes in, moves in January 1st. Oh, you don't live at 51 Dohon Street. You can't, it's not a legal address. But my neighbor downstairs still lives there. After this came up, Diane sent her a change of address form. She's not going to sign it. She doesn't want her address changed. Now, and I know you want to get out of here, Mr. Chairman, but you know, I'm heated because there was poor communication in this whole thing. You know, a lot of our departments have an issue of not talking to each other, or talking to the people, or talking to the board of directors here of this organization. Now, in calling the Attorney General's office, they state, and quote, "A dwelling address is where you get your utility bills and you register your car," according to the Attorney General. All our bills are received there. All her mail is received there. The question is, why wasn't the owner notified of this situation? Never was the owner of the property notified of this. We should have received a notice from whoever it was going to be, 180-day notice by registered mail prior to any change. Did we get that? No. We're lucky if we got 30 days. This is the communication gap. Poor, poor, poor communication. I know you guys are doing your job, trying to do your job, but in this case, there's more people being affected than us three. And the other 500 that did it, I've spoken to some of them, and some of them were afraid they couldn't vote because of the way it was worded. I'm just telling you, it's the way they took it. You know, say, well, you know, I guess I can't do anything about it. I guess I'm going to have to change my address. This should not be put on the senior citizens of this city. And that's what's happening. They have to change their address, they have to change all their credit cards, they have to change their license, they have to change everything that they own. What they have to go through, it is a burden. And Councilor Morabito is correct. It is a burden. And the city should take that burden, not the person that lives in that house. And I can tell you that there may be double addresses. Dashes are never used. I've never seen a dash used in an address. It just bothers me. I was told originally it was 4,000 homes that are involved here. 4,000 that have double addresses in this city. Out of how many? 26,000 or 13,000, whatever the number. So that means that it's affecting, could be 8,000 to 10,000 people. Lorna's one of them. My folks, I have 2 folks in my apartment house that are affected. So Councilor Zambuto had a citizen that complained about it too that was affected. It should have been 0 affected. We should have been told about it a long, long, long time ago to prepare us and to let us know that we're going to be going through this at this point. We probably wouldn't have to go through this if the proper communication was made to all the people in this city through the mayor, through the city council, and everybody else that had to be. So you can tell I'm very upset about it, the way it was done, the way it was done. And I do object to scaring people about 911, because I was talking to the mayor, and 911 should not be used as an example for one address. If they know 53 DeHone Street, they're going to get there. If it's 51 DeHone Street, they're going to get there. If it's 82 Malden Street or 83 or 81 Malden Street, they're still going to get there. They know the phone numbers. The phones lead to those addresses. So that's all I have to say, but something better be done to notify all the people that this is going to happen. And I would ask that at this point, that you do a cease and desist on any contacts or changes until everybody is notified. Thank you.
Okay, here's the deal. We're going to have to continue this because we're not going to get this all done tonight. I've got another meeting coming up, and we got 2 other items to deal with. We're going to have to come back and spend some more time on this because we're not going to resolve the outstanding problems here now.
Can I just say one thing, though?
Go ahead.
We've been doing this with the invalid addresses, and I agree, it should have been here. Management was aware of what we were doing because I had to seek their assistance at one point. So we didn't do it under, January 5th, 1999, I have all correspondence here that this has been done for quite a while.
To who, ma'am?
These
To who
are
are
just...
those communications to?
No, it was, we've been working with we've been doing everything we're doing now forever.
This
is what we've
management
been-
didn't hear about it.
I don't know why, we were just doing our job.
Well,
I mean,
I was,
that's-
excuse me, Mr. Chairman, but I was told that parties were asked if the city council should be involved in this, and they left it up to
We
someone.
would never ask that.
You know,
That is not
okay.
true. We
Well,
would never ask that.
whether
We
or
were
not the
just
city
doing our
council should
job.
know.
We
And
were just doing
I
our job.
was told that.
Okay,
I
so
was
it's a
told.
lie. Whoever said that, that's a lie.
Hold on a minute. So what's going on here now is the same thing that went on before, a lack of communication. There's information out there that might not be true, that somebody said the city council shouldn't be involved.
Well, people
Forget all
shouldn't be
that.
speaking, saying,
All right, so let's forget all that.
Okay.
Going forward, we're going to communicate a lot better here.
Yes.
We're going to try to work out problems like this woman's problem here, and the council's problem, and a lot of other problems. But we're not going to do this
I do
tonight.
just-
We're not going to solve it
just
tonight.
one
I
more?
don't want to go any further with this
Okay.
tonight.
All
We're going to
right.
leave this as it is. We're going to bring it up at the next subcommittee meeting, and we'll try to clean up all this mess. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Give me a quick...
I believe it was 1990, whatever, that this started. I here have a certificate of occupancy from the city of Revere. Street and number, 81-83 Malden Street, to the owner, my mother, Ella Petrilli, for a 4-family dwelling, pre-existing permit numbered, dated April 10th, 2007.
I'm sure there's a lot of that out there, too. You're not the only one. Let's leave it for the next
We did
meeting.
do due diligence, though, on both situations.
Okay.
We pulled everything.
All right, great. Thank you. We got a couple of quick items to take care of here.
Council Order
Madam Clerk.
18-142, an ordinance relative to departmental revolving funds.
Richard, we're going to have to do this quickly, since we took up all the time. Some of us talk too much.
Briefly, as quickly as possible.
Give your name and name and address for the
Richard Viskey,
audience.
City Auditor, Budget Director, City of Revere,
Thank
and I'm brought before you an updated schedule of revolving funds. This is according to the new Municipal Modernization Act and Massachusetts general law that require that this body approve revolving funds going forward. As a matter of fact, these would become city ordinance, and you wouldn't have to go through the
Right.
trouble of renewing that all the time.
Can I have one of them?
Happy to answer any questions on that.
Thank
If
you.
there are any, I know there was a public hearing, but just wanted to come here and try to answer any questions that were any.
Mr. Chairman? Mr. Chairman?
Councilor Rizzo.
I just have a very brief question, because it was my understanding at the public hearing that we're almost required to do this. Am I correct in saying that? Or is this something?
You're required to adopt departmental revolving accounts for them to be valid, yes.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. That's all I have.
Thank you. Any committee members?
Mr. Chairman?
Councilor
Yeah,
Powers.
I have a concern with the revolving account for the outside water meters. I know we haven't had any to give out for quite a while, and there are people that are coming in on a daily basis looking for that meter, so that, we're in the springtime now, we're going into summer, and that allows them to get a discount on their sewage charge. So I just hope that's something we can get done quickly. Thank you,
Council,
Mr.
the reason why that's in there is because it didn't exist previously, so this will allow any new deduct meters that are sold will go into a special account so that we can replenish the stock. So
That's my
actually
main
one of the newer
concern, because I
ones.
see people every day coming in and they're looking for outside meters and they're not available.
Yeah, this is designed to help that process and hopefully tighten that timeline up.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any other councilors on the committee? Okay, Madam Clerk, you want to call the roll for a vote on this?
On an ordinance relative to departmental revolving funds, Councilor McKenna?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Morbido?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Patch is absent. Councilor Powers?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Zambudo?
Yes.
Yes, the ordinance will be reported out to the full city council with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you. One more quick item.
Thank you.
Council Order 18-143, a parity salary ordinance for Section J of the Revere Revised Ordinances. Director of Finance George Anzoni had to leave, but he would like to be recorded as being in favor of this ordinance.
Any councilors want to speak on the parity? Okay, we'll call for a vote. Madam Clerk?
On the parity salary ordinance for Section J of the Revere Revised Ordinances, Counselor McKenna.
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Morbido.
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Patch is absent. Counselor Powers.
Present,
Present.
I can't vote on this.
And Counselor Zambudo.
Yes.
Yes, the ordinance will be reported out favorably to the full City Council.
Thank you. There's no further business for the Legislative Affairs Committee. Thank you.